The dust hanging in the air of Terminus Station's auction yard made Eli Carter cough as he shuffled through the crowded aisle. The light from the station's artificial sun filtered weakly through the grimy skylights, casting everything in a dingy yellow haze. Eli pulled his worn jacket tighter around his thin frame, acutely aware of the meager credit balance on his chip, his entire life savings. "Last call for lot 379, boomed the automated auctioneer's voice. "One Aurelian-class scout vessel. Non-functional drive core. Cosmetic damage throughout. Starting bid, 50 credits. Eli peered around the towering frame of a Varaxian trader to get a better look. The ship was little more than a battered hull with peeling paint and exposed wiring. Most of the other bidders had already wandered off to more promising lots, leaving only a handful of junk dealers and part scavengers eyeing it with minimal interest. 50 credits, called out a mechan dealer, probably planning to strip it for scrap. Eli felt a strange pull toward the vessel. Something about its sleek, albeit damaged, lines appealed to him. As an unemployed engineer, drifting from station to station, looking for work at the edge of the galaxy, he had developed a keen eye for potential beneath wreckage. 60, Eli found himself saying, hand raised slightly. The mechan dealer gave him a dismissive look with all four eyes and countered 70. Eli's throat tightened. He had exactly 218 credits to his name. 100, he said, his voice stronger than he felt. The mechan dealer muttered something in its native clicking language and turned away. No one else seemed interested. Going once, going twice. Sold to the human in Sector 3 for 100 credits, announced the auctioneer. Just like that, Eli had become a ship owner. The processing drone buzzed over, its screen lighting up with the ownership transfer form. Identification and payment, please. Eli pressed his thumb against the scanner and authorized the transfer of nearly half his worldly wealth. The drone's printer spat out a small chip. Congratulations on your purchase of the Aurelian vessel. Designation Starfall. Ownership transfer complete. Docking Bay 12, Level 8. The drone buzzed away to the next transaction. Eli stood staring at the small chip in his palm. What had he done? He couldn't afford the dock fees for more than a few days, let alone the parts to make it space-worthy. Yet somehow he felt as if the ship had called to him specifically. An hour later, Eli stood before his new acquisition in the cavernous docking bay. Up close, the Aurelian looked even worse. Scarred hull plates, a cracked viewport, and what appeared to be energy weapons scoring along the starboard side. Still, beneath the damage, the ship's lines were elegant, almost organic. It was clearly designed for speed and maneuverability rather than cargo or firepower. Eli approached the entry ramp, which hung partially ajar. The ownership chip vibrated slightly in his hand as he neared. Then the ramp creaked and descended fully to the deck with a groan of protesting metal. At least the basic systems are still operational, Eli muttered to himself as he stepped inside. The interior was surprisingly spacious for such a compact vessel. The main cabin was dusty but intact, with a pilot chair that seemed unusually large for a human frame. The control panels were dark, but unlike most derelicts, nothing had been stripped out. In fact, the technology looked oddly advanced, with interfaces Eli didn't recognize despite his engineering background. "Hello," he called, his voice echoing slightly. He wasn't sure why he felt the need to announce himself to an empty ship. There was no response, but as he moved further into the cabin, soft lights began to flicker on around him. The control panels hummed to life, displays illuminating in a language he couldn't read. The ship was waking up. Eli ran his hand over the pilot's console. "What secrets are you hiding, old girl?" A sudden hiss from behind made him spin around. A previously invisible door in the rear bulkhead had slid open, revealing a narrow corridor he hadn't noticed before. More lights activated, leading deeper into the ship. Curiosity overwhelming caution, Eli followed the lights. The corridor curved gently, leading to another chamber. As he stepped inside, he gasped. The room was dominated by a large cylindrical tank filled with a pale blue liquid that glowed softly in the dim light. And floating within, what the hell? Eli breathed. A humanoid figure suspended in the liquid, apparently female, with silvery skin that reflected the blue glow. Her eyes were closed, and her long, silvery white hair floated around her like a halo. She wore what appeared to be some kind of form-fitting armor or bodysuit that left little to the imagination. Eli approached the tank cautiously. There were no visible controls, but as he drew near, the surface of the tank rippled, and the liquid began to drain away. The woman inside remained suspended, apparently unconscious. When the liquid had completely drained, the front of the tank slid open with another hiss. The woman collapsed forward, and Eli rushed to catch her before she hit the floor. She was surprisingly light in his arms despite her height, which nearly matched his own 6 feet. Her skin felt warm against his hands, not cold as he'd expected from her metallic appearance. Up close, he could see that her skin wasn't truly silver, but had a subtle, pearlescent quality that caught the light. Suddenly, her eyes snapped open. They were entirely purple with no visible whites or pupils. Yet somehow, Eli knew she was staring directly at him. He froze, still supporting her weight. Her lips parted, and she spoke in a language unlike anything Eli had ever heard, melodic and fluid, with impossible consonants. Then she blinked, and her eyes seemed to focus more clearly on his face. Recalibrating language interface, she said, her voice now perfectly understandable, though still carrying an exotic, musical quality. Local dialect identified. Adjusting, she straightened, pulling away from his support with fluid grace. Standing at her full height, she regarded him intently, her expression unreadable. "You have awakened the guardian of the Aurelian," she announced. "I am Lissa, sentinel of the 3rd dynasty of Arlon Prime." She paused, looking him over with those unsettling purple eyes. "By the sacred laws of my people, you who have awakened me are now bound as my life mate." Eli stepped back, nearly tripping over his own feet. "I'm your what?" "My life mate," she repeated calmly, as though stating the most obvious fact in the universe. "The bond is irreversible. The Aurelian recognizes you as its new master and me as your bound guardian." "Now hold on a minute," Eli protested, raising his hands defensively. "I just bought this ship at auction. Nobody said anything about a person coming with it." Lissa tilted her head slightly. "The Aurelian is not merely a vessel. It is a living extension of its bonded pair. You felt a call to you, did you not?" Eli remembered the strange pull he'd felt toward the ship at the auction and fell silent. "The bond has already begun," Lissa continued. "I can sense it forming." She stepped closer, and Eli fought the urge to back away again. "You are afraid. That is natural for a species unfamiliar with the bond." "I'm not afraid," Eli lied. "I'm just confused, and definitely not looking for a life mate, alien or otherwise." The ship suddenly shuddered around them, and the lights flickered. Lissa's expression changed to one of alert concern. "We must leave this place immediately," she said. "They have found us." "They? Who's they?" Eli demanded, but Lissa was already moving past him toward the main cabin. "The hunters who seek the Aurelian," she replied over her shoulder. "Those who betrayed me and left me in stasis, hoping to claim the ship without its guardian." "Great," Eli muttered, following her. 100 credits for a ship with an alien wife and unknown enemies. What a bargain. In the main cabin, Lissa settled into the pilot's chair with practiced ease. Her hands danced over the controls, which now glowed brightly in response to her touch. Displays flickered with information Eli couldn't read. "The ship's systems recognize me, but they cannot fully activate without the bonded pair," she said. "You must take the navigator's position." She gestured to a second chair that had unfolded from the floor beside her. Eli hesitated. "Look, I don't know what's happening here, but..." Another violent shudder ran through the ship, stronger this time. The dock alarms began to wail. "We have no time," Lissa interrupted. "I cannot pilot the Aurelian alone, and if we remain, we will both die." Cursing under his breath, Eli dropped into the navigator's chair. Immediately, restraints snaked around his wrists and ankles, securing him in place. Before he could protest, a neural interface headset descended from above and settled over his temples. "What the—" he began, but his words cut off as the interface activated. Suddenly, his mind was flooded with information: ship schematics, navigation data, sensor readings. It was overwhelming, yet somehow comprehensible, as though the knowledge had always been there, just waiting to be accessed. Neural synchronization at 30%. Announced a new voice, the ship's AI, feminine and coolly efficient. Sufficient for emergency departure. Through the viewport, Eli saw armed security drones entering the docking bay, followed by a squad of mercenaries in matching black armor. "Who authorized their entry?" he demanded. "Your ownership registration has been flagged as fraudulent," the AI replied. "Station security has been overridden." "But it's not fraudulent. I bought this ship fair and square." Explanations later, Lyssa said. Tersely, "Navigator, plot emergency departure course." To Eli's astonishment, his hands moved almost of their own accord, fingers dancing across the controls. Information flowed through his mind like water, and somehow he knew exactly what to do. "Departure course plotted," he heard himself say. "Docking clamps disengaged. Emergency thrusters ready. Initiating departure sequence," Lyssa confirmed. "Brace for impact." The Aurelian's engines roared to life, overwhelming the dock's containment fields. The ship lurched forward, tearing free of the remaining restraints. Emergency force fields snapped into place behind them as they burst out of the docking bay into open space. "We've got pursuit," Eli reported, reading the sensor data flowing through his mind. 3 security cutters and a mercenary gunship. "Conventional evasive maneuvers will not suffice," Lyssa said. "We must sink deeper to access the Aurelian's full capabilities." "What does that mean?" Eli asked nervously. "It means," Lyssa replied, her purple eyes meeting his, "that you must allow me into your mind, and you into mine. The Aurelian cannot reach its potential without a fully bonded pair." "That sounds invasive," Eli protested. The ship rocked as energy fire from the pursuit vessels struck their aft shields. "Shield integrity at 70% and falling," the AI reported calmly. "It is your choice," Lyssa said. "But without the bond, we cannot escape." Another hit rocked the ship. "Shields at 55%. Eli gritted his teeth. "Fine. What do I do?" "Relax your mind and do not resist the connection," Lyssa instructed, reaching out to place her silvery hand over his. The moment they touched, Eli felt a jolt like electricity racing up his arm. The neural interface hummed, and suddenly his consciousness expanded. He could feel Lyssa's presence, not words or thoughts exactly, but impressions, emotions, intentions. And through her, he could sense the ship itself, alive in a way he couldn't have imagined. Neural synchronization at 60%, the AI announced. Accessing enhanced maneuvering systems. The Aurelian moved like a living thing, banking and rolling with impossible grace. Eli felt every movement as though it were his own body, with Lyssa's consciousness guiding his, showing him how to direct the ship's energy. The pursuing vessels fell behind, unable to match their maneuvers. Preparing for dimensional shift, Lyssa announced. "Dimensional what?" Eli asked, but he already knew the answer from the shared consciousness. The Aurelian wasn't limited to normal space. It could slip between the layers of reality. "Shift drive charging," the AI confirmed. "Synchronization at 75%, sufficient for short-range jump." "Target, Helios Nebula Drift," Lyssa commanded. "Execute on navigator's mark." Eli found himself mentally reaching for a control that wasn't physical but conceptual, a point in space-time that he could somehow grasp and fold. "Mark," he called, and the universe seemed to ripple around them. Stars stretched into lines, then swirled into a vortex of light. Eli's stomach lurched as reality itself twisted. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the sensation ceased. The view screen showed a vast, glowing nebula, beautiful swirls of purple and blue gas illuminated by distant stars. "Dimensional shift complete," the AI reported. "Pursuit vessels lost. Current location, Helios Nebula, uncharted region. The neural link faded to a background hum, and Eli slumped in his chair, exhausted. Lissa released his hand, and the intense connection between them dimmed, though he could still feel her presence at the edges of his awareness. "You did well for an untrained bondmate," she said, her voice betraying a hint of surprise. "Thanks, I think," Eli replied weakly. "Now would you mind explaining what the hell just happened? Who were those people? What is this ship really? And most importantly, what did you mean about me being your life mate?" Lissa's expression softened slightly. "The explanation is complex. The Aurelian is one of the last vessels of its kind, a biosynthetic ship created by my people, the Aurelians. It forms a psychic bond with a paired pilot and navigator, drawing power from their mental energies. And the life mate thing?" Eli pressed. "Among my people, the guardians of such vessels are bound to those who awaken them from stasis," she explained. "It is both a practical arrangement and a sacred tradition. The bond allows for optimal neural synchronization." "But I'm not one of your people," Eli pointed out. "I didn't agree to any of this." "The Aurelian chose you," Lissa replied simply. "It would not have allowed you to awaken me otherwise." Eli ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "And those mercenaries?" Lissa's expression hardened. "They served Commander Threx, once my superior in the Aurelian Defense Fleet. When the war ended and our homeworld fell, he betrayed me, placing me in stasis, and attempting to claim the Aurelian for himself. But the ship rejected him, and he could not pilot it without me." "What war? What happened to your homeworld?" Eli asked, suddenly curious despite his frustration. A shadow passed over Lissa's face. "The cataclysm. It happened over 500 of your years ago. My civilization was all but destroyed by forces we had awakened from the void between galaxies. Only a few of us survived, scattered across the stars. 500 years. Eli stared at her. "You've been in stasis for 5 centuries? Time passes differently in deep stasis," she said quietly. "For me, it has been but moments since I last saw my world burn." The enormity of her loss struck Eli, and for a moment, his own troubles seemed trivial by comparison. "Still, I'm sorry about your world," he said sincerely. "But that doesn't change the fact that I never agreed to be anyone's life mate. There has to be a way to undo this bond." Lissa regarded him silently for a long moment, her alien eyes unreadable. "There is no reversal," she finally said. "The bond is permanent. To break it would mean death for one or both of us." "That's convenient," Eli muttered. "It is not a matter of convenience," Lissa replied, a hint of irritation in her voice. "It is our biology. The Aurelian is linked to both our life forces now. Severing that connection would be like removing a vital organ." Eli was about to argue further when the ship's AI interrupted. "Attention. Power reserves at 30%. Recommend planetfall for recharging and repairs." Eli glanced at the status displays, which he could now partially understand thanks to the neural link. "She's right. We took some damage in the escape." Lissa nodded. "The nebula contains a habitable moon that should provide suitable conditions for the Aurelian to regenerate." "Regenerate?" Eli raised an eyebrow. "You mean it can heal itself?" "With sufficient energy, yes. The Aurelian is partially organic in nature." "Of course it is," Eli sighed. "Why not? Alien wife, living spaceship. What's next?" "Your attempts at humor mask your discomfort," Lissa observed. "This is a common coping mechanism among humans, is it not?" "Don't psychoanalyze me," Eli grumbled. "Let's just get to this moon and figure out our next move." Lissa inclined her head slightly. "As you wish, bondmate." "And stop calling me that," Eli added. "My name is Eli. Eli Carter." "Very well, Eli." His name sounded exotic in her musical accent. "You may call me Lissa." "I know. You already introduced yourself." He turned back to the controls. "Let's go find that moon." The journey to the habitable moon took less than an hour. As they approached, Eli saw that it was a beautiful world of deep blue oceans and swirling white clouds, with continents of rich greens and purples. It looked untouched by civilization. "The perfect place for the Aurelian to heal," Lissa said, reading the sensor data. "And for us to..." adjust to our new situation. Eli chose not to comment on that last part. He was still hoping to find a way out of this bond once they were safely away from Threx and his mercenaries. They entered the atmosphere smoothly, the ship's advanced design easily compensating for the transition from space to air. Lissa guided them toward a clearing in a forest of tall, purple-tinged trees near a sparkling lake. As they settled onto the ground, the ship powered down to a low hum. Lissa released her restraints and stood. The Aurelian will draw energy from the environment, she explained. It should be fully restored within one planetary rotation. So we're stuck here for a day, Eli concluded. Yes, it'll give us time to become better acquainted. Eli suppressed a groan. Look, Lissa, you seem nice for someone who's declared me her husband without my consent. But I'm really not interested in getting better acquainted. I just want to fix the ship and figure out how to undo whatever this bond thing is. Lissa's expression remained neutral, but Eli thought he detected a hint of hurt in those strange purple eyes. The bond is not merely a romantic attachment, though that aspect is traditionally part of it, she said carefully. It is a mental and spiritual connection that allows the Aurelian to function at its highest capacity. Even if you wish to eventually part ways, while we are together, strengthening the bond would be advantageous for both our survivals. Put that way, it made practical sense. Eli sighed. Fine. What does strengthening the bond involve? Please tell me it's not some weird alien mating ritual. To his surprise, Lissa's silvery cheeks darkened slightly. She was blushing. Nothing so intimate at this stage. Simple mind-sharing exercises will suffice. Mind-sharing, Eli repeated dubiously. Like what we did during the escape? Similar, but more controlled, she confirmed. It will allow us to function better as a team and help you adjust to the Aurelian systems. Eli considered this. If he was stuck with her for now, at least until they could shake off Threx's pursuit, he might as well learn to operate the ship properly. All right, he agreed reluctantly. But first, I want to inspect the damage and see what we're dealing with. Lissa nodded. A reasonable request. The external access is this way. She moved toward a side corridor. As Eli followed her, he found himself studying her strange, alien beauty. Despite his frustration with the situation, he had to admit there were worse fates than being stuck with a gorgeous warrior woman from an advanced civilization, even if she was technically his wife against his will. The thought made him chuckle darkly. Of all the junk he could have bought at that auction, he had to pick the one with an alien bride included. Just his luck. Outside, the air was surprisingly Earth-like, though with a sweeter scent that reminded Eli of cinnamon. The gravity was slightly lighter than he was used to, giving each step a subtle bounciness. The Aurelian rested in the clearing, its sleek form gleaming in the light of the system's blue-white sun. From the exterior, the damage was more evident. Scorch marks from energy weapons, a cracked sensor array, and what appeared to be micrometeor impacts along the hull. Yet even as they watched, Eli noticed something strange. The hull seemed to be flowing, the metal rippling slightly as though it were liquid. It's already beginning to heal, Lissa explained, noticing his amazed expression. The Aurelian absorbs energy from sunlight and converts it to matter for repairs. That's impossible, Eli said automatically, his engineer's mind rejecting the concept. Lissa smiled slightly, the first time he'd seen her do so. For your technology, perhaps. The Aurelians had mastered matter-energy conversion long before the cataclysm. Eli approached the hull, running his hand over a section that was visibly reforming. It felt warm and slightly yielding, like touching very firm clay. This technology could revolutionize everything, he murmured. No wonder Threx wants it so badly. It is not the self-repair capability that makes the Aurelian valuable, Lissa said, her voice suddenly serious. It is what lies at its core, the dimensional shift drive. In the wrong hands, it could destabilize the fabric of reality itself. Eli turned to face her. Is that what happened to your world? The cataclysm? Lissa's expression darkened. In part, we grew too confident, pushed the boundaries too far. The dimensional barriers were weakened, and what came through? She shuddered visibly. There are things between realities that should never be encountered. The gravity of her words hung in the air between them. For the first time, Eli began to understand that there might be more at stake than just his unwanted bond with an alien warrior. So this isn't just about Threx wanting a fancy ship, he said slowly. If he figures out how to use this technology, he could cause damage beyond imagination. Lissa finished. Threx was always ambitious, but after the fall, something in him broke. He believes he can restore our civilization by harnessing the power that destroyed it. That sounds like a spectacularly bad idea, Eli remarked. Indeed, Lissa's gaze was distant. Now perhaps you understand why the bond exists. The Aurelian's power required safeguards, two minds working in perfect harmony, balancing each other. One to channel the energy, one to direct it. Eli considered this. It made a twisted sort of sense. A failsafe built into the very operation of the ship. So, without me, you can't fully control the ship, and without you, I can't either. Precisely. She focused on him again. Whatever your feelings about our situation, Eli Carter, we are now guardians of something dangerous. The bond ensures neither of us can abuse that power alone. The responsibility settled on Eli's shoulders like a weight. He'd never asked for this, had only wanted a ship to call his own, a way to escape his aimless existence. Now he was bound to an alien warrior and a living ship, standing between a madman and potentially universe-ending technology. I need to sit down, he said weakly. Lissa gestured to a fallen log at the edge of the clearing. They sat side by side, watching as the Aurelian continued its silent self-repairs under the alien sun. For what it's worth, Lissa said after a moment, I did not choose this outcome either. When I entered stasis, I expected to be awakened by one of my own kind, if at all. How did the ship end up at a backwater auction, anyway? Eli asked. I can only speculate. After Threx betrayed me, he likely tried to force the Aurelian to accept him. When it refused, he might have abandoned it, thinking to return with technology that could override its safeguards. Over the centuries, it must have changed hands many times, its true nature forgotten. Until it called to me, Eli mused. Lissa turned to study. Him. Yes. The Aurelian sensed something in you, Eli Carter. A compatibility with its systems that most humans would not possess. Lucky me, he said, without much enthusiasm. You are uncomfortable with the term life mate, Lissa observed. In your culture, it suggests a romantic and physical bond. Eli felt his cheeks warm. Well, yeah, where I come from, you usually date someone before marrying them. Get to know them. Decide if you're compatible. Among my people, bonds were often strategic rather than romantic, especially for guardians, Lissa explained. The emotional connection would grow naturally through the mental link. She paused. However, I understand your reluctance. We can refer to ourselves as bond partners if that is less distressing. That's marginally better, Eli admitted. Look, it's not that you're not. I mean, you're obviously... He gestured vaguely at her, then stopped, embarrassed. It's just the lack of choice in the matter. Lissa's expression softened. Freedom of choice is important to humans. This I understand. Among my kind, we believed in destiny, that some paths are written in the fabric of reality itself. She looked up at the sky. Perhaps it was destiny that brought you to the Aurelian. I don't believe in destiny, Eli said firmly. I believe we make our own choices, and we deal with the consequences. And yet here we are, Lissa responded, bound together by circumstances neither of us chose. A small, wry smile touched her lips. Perhaps destiny and choice are not as separate as you think. Before Eli could respond, the ship's AI spoke through a small communicator on Lissa's wrist. Alert. Long-range sensors detect multiple vessels entering the system. Configuration matches Threx's fleet. Eli jumped to his feet. How did they find us so quickly? The dimensional shift leaves traces that can be followed by those who know what to look for, Lissa explained, already moving toward the ship. The Aurelian's repairs are not complete, but we must depart immediately. They rushed back inside, where the control room was now humming with energy. The displays showed 5 ships entering orbit around the moon. They're deploying drop ships, Eli noted, reading the sensor data. Ground troops incoming. We cannot outrun them in the Aurelian's current state, Lyssa said grimly. We must stand and fight. Fight? Against an entire squad of mercenaries? With what? In answer, Lyssa pressed her hand to a section of wall that Eli had thought was decorative. It slid open to reveal a weapons locker containing what looked like advanced energy rifles and pistols. The Aurelian comes equipped for all contingencies, she said, selecting a rifle for herself and offering a pistol to Eli. Do you know how to use projectile weapons? Eli took the pistol gingerly. It was lighter than it looked, molding to his grip as though custom-made. I've used hunting rifles, but nothing like this. It operates on similar principles. Point and discharge. The targeting system will compensate for most inaccuracies. She strapped a utility belt around her waist, attaching various devices Eli couldn't identify. We should take position outside. The trees will provide cover. Eli checked the pistol's charge. Full, according to the small display on its side. I was really hoping to avoid a firefight today. Few wars are fought at convenient times, Lyssa replied philosophically. The bond will help us coordinate. Trust your instincts. My instincts are telling me to run very fast in the opposite direction, Eli muttered, but he followed her toward the exit hatch. As they emerged from the ship, they could already hear the roar of drop-ship engines in the distance. 3 landing zones detected. The ship's AI reported through their communicators. Estimated 30 combatants total. 30 against 2, Eli calculated. Those are terrible odds. I have faced worse, Lyssa said, taking position behind a large boulder at the clearing's edge. Besides, we have the advantage of the bond. How exactly does that help us in a firefight? Eli asked, crouching beside her. Instead of answering, Lyssa reached out and gripped his forearm. Instantly, the mental connection flared between them, stronger than before. Eli gasped as information flooded his awareness. Tactical data, combat techniques, weapon specifications. He could sense Lyssa's battle readiness, her controlled breathing, the precise tension in her muscles as she prepared to fight. Oh, he said weakly as she released his arm. That's how. Remember what you just felt, she instructed. Draw on it when the fighting starts. The first dropship appeared overhead, a sleek black craft bristling with weapons. It hovered over the far side of the clearing, disgorging a dozen armored figures who immediately spread out in a standard search pattern. They haven't spotted us yet, Eli whispered. Maybe we can sneak back to the ship and... A bright beam of energy lanced from the dropship toward their position, vaporizing the top half of the boulder they were using as cover. Eli ducked, showered with dust and debris. Or maybe they know exactly where we are, he amended. The Aurelian is broadcasting a unique energy signature as it repairs, Lyssa explained, already shifting to a new position. Stealth is not an option. The mercenaries opened fire, energy bolts streaking toward their position. Lyssa moved with incredible speed, returning fire with precise bursts from a rifle. 2 attackers fell immediately, but more were advancing from multiple directions. Drawing on the combat knowledge that had momentarily flowed from Lyssa, Eli raised his pistol and fired. The weapon discharged with barely a sound, releasing a pulse of blue energy that struck an advancing mercenary squarely in the chest. The attacker went down hard. Nice shot, Lyssa called, dispatching another enemy with a double tap to the torso. Lucky, Eli replied, though he knew it wasn't luck at all. It was the bond, enhancing his natural abilities. For several minutes, they held their ground through a combination of Lyssa's expert marksmanship and the unexpected accuracy of Eli's supporting fire. But the mercenaries kept coming, coordinating their movements with professional precision. We're being herded, Lyssa realized, as another group appeared to their left, forcing them to retreat toward a denser section of forest. They're separating us from the ship. That's bad, right? Eli asked, wincing as energy fire sizzled past his ear. Very. Without the Aurelian, we lose our only means of escape. She checked her rifle's charge. We need to break through their line and return to the ship. That sounds suicidal, Eli objected. Perhaps. Lyssa's purple eyes met his. But it is our only option. Are you with me, bond partner? Despite the dire circumstances, Eli found himself smiling at her use of the revised term. Do I have a choice? There is always choice, Eli Carter. Her expression was solemn. But some choices lead to longer lives than others. In that case, Eli said, checking his pistol's charge, I choose the option where we both stay alive. Let's do this. Lissa nodded once, then raised her communicator. Aurelian, activate Defense Protocol 7. Acknowledged, the AI responded. Defense Protocol 7 initiated. Be advised, weapons systems at 40% capacity. What's Defense Protocol 7? Eli asked. The answer came moments later as the Aurelian's hull split open in several places, revealing concealed weapon emplacements. They swiveled to target the mercenaries, firing rapid bursts of energy that forced the attackers to scatter and take cover. Our opening, Lissa announced, and without further warning, she sprang from their hiding place, sprinting toward the ship with blinding speed. Eli followed, adrenaline surging through his system as energy bolts crisscrossed the clearing around them. The bond between them flared again, unbidden this time. Eli could sense Lissa's movements before she made them, allowing him to synchronize his own pace perfectly with hers. They moved like dancers through the deadly barrage, each instinctively covering the other's blind spots. 20 meters to entry point. The ship's AI informed them through their communicators. A mercenary appeared directly in their path, weapon raised. Before Eli could react, Lissa executed a flawless combat roll, coming up beneath the attacker's guard and disabling him with a precise strike to the throat. Without breaking stride, she grabbed the fallen mercenary's weapon and tossed it to Eli, who caught it reflexively. Secondary weapon acquired, he reported, surprising himself with a professional tone. The combat mindset flowing from Lissa through their bond was affecting his behavior. They reached the ship's entry ramp just as the second drop ship arrived, disgorging more troops. The Aurelian's defensive systems were overwhelmed, forced to divert fire to multiple targets. Get inside, Lissa ordered, taking up a defensive position at the base of the ramp. I'll cover our retreat. Not without you, Eli insisted, dropping to one knee beside her and laying down suppressing fire with both weapons. The dual-wielding technique came naturally, another benefit of the bond. Lissa flashed him a look that might have been approval before returning her attention to the advancing mercenaries. Aurelian, prepare for emergency launch. Unable to comply, the AI responded. Repair cycle incomplete. Drive systems at 60% capacity. Override safety protocols, Lissa commanded. Authorization, Sentinel Prime. Acknowledged. Safety protocols disengaged. Be advised, unstable flight conditions likely. A new voice cut through their communicators, deep, authoritative, with the same musical quality as Lissa's, but harsher, more guttural. Sentinel Lissa, how disappointing to find you in the company of a primitive. Lissa stiffened, her firing pattern faltering momentarily. Threx, I see you found a new bondmate, the voice continued. How does it feel to be bound to a creature barely beyond tool-making? Does he even understand what the Aurelian truly is? He understands more than you ever did, Lissa replied, her voice cold. The Aurelian rejected you for a reason, Commander. Harsh laughter echoed through the calm. The Aurelian is merely a tool. Lissa, a weapon to be wielded, not worshipped. Your sentimentality was always your weakness. During this exchange, the mercenaries had ceased fire, pulling back to defensive positions around the clearing. Through a gap in the trees, Eli spotted a tall figure in ornate armor approaching. Unlike the mercenaries' utilitarian black suits, this armor gleamed with a dull golden sheen and was adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Is that him? Eli whispered. Lissa nodded once, her expression grim. Commander Threx, once the pride of the Aerolonian fleet, now a relic hunting relics. I heard that, Threx called, still advancing. Your communicator encryption was always substandard, Sentinel. He stopped at the edge of the clearing, finally visible in full. Threx was taller than Lissa by at least a head, with the same silvery skin but broader features and eyes that glowed a deep crimson instead of purple. His white hair was cropped short in a military style, and a network of scars marred the left side of his face. "I'm offering you one chance, Lissa," Threx announced. "Surrender the Aurelian and the human. I will allow you to serve under me once more as we rebuild what was lost." "There is nothing to rebuild, Threx," Lissa replied. "Arlon Prime is gone, along with the civilization that created the dimensional drives. We were wrong to develop them, wrong to use them." "Spoken like a true defeatist," Threx sneered. "Our mistake was hesitation, not ambition. With the Aurelian, I can tear open the barriers between realities and extract the energy needed to restore our people to glory. That's exactly what caused the cataclysm in the first place." Lissa shot back. "How many worlds must die before you accept the truth?" Eli listened to this exchange with growing alarm. The casual way Threx spoke of tearing reality itself made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. This wasn't just about a valuable ship anymore. It was about preventing another catastrophe. "We need to go," he whispered to Lissa. "Now." She nodded almost imperceptibly. "Aurelian, activate Emergency Protocol 9. "Acknowledged," the AI responded. "Emergency Protocol 9 initiated. Prepare for immediate departure." The ship hummed beneath them, vibrations running through the entry ramp. Threx must have sensed what was happening, because he suddenly raised his hand, and the mercenaries opened fire again. "Inside now," Lissa shouted, shoving Eli up the ramp before turning to lay down one final burst of covering fire. An energy bolt from Threx's personal weapon, larger and more powerful than the mercenaries' guns, caught Lissa in the shoulder, spinning her around. She stumbled, nearly falling off the ramp. Without thinking, Eli lunged back out, grabbing her armor and dragging her inside as the entry hatch began to close. They collapsed in a heap on the floor as the Aurelian's engines roared to life. "Launch sequence initiated," the AI announced. "Structural integrity at 75%. Recommend securing for unstable ascent." Eli helped Lissa to her feet. Her shoulder was burned where Threx's weapon had struck. The silvery skin blackened and blistered. "You're hurt." "It is minor," she insisted, though her face was tight with pain. "We must reach the control chamber." They staggered through the corridor as the ship lurched upward, artificial gravity struggling to compensate for the rapid acceleration. In the control room, they strapped into their respective chairs just as the neural interfaces descended. The moment the interface connected, Eli gasped. The damage to the ship was worse than he'd thought. Systems were redlining everywhere, and the dimensional drive was fluctuating dangerously. "We can't make a dimensional jump in this condition," he warned, reading the data flowing through his mind. "We have no choice," Lissa replied grimly. "Threx's flagship has orbital weapons that can destroy us before we reach escape velocity." As if to confirm her words, the ship shuddered violently as something struck their aft shields. "Direct hit," the AI reported. "Shield integrity at 40%. Second hostile vessel moving to intercept." "Divert all non-essential power to shields and engines," Lissa commanded. Complying. "Be advised, dimensional drive charging sequence compromised. Probability of successful transition, 62%. "Not great odds," Eli muttered. "Better than zero if we stay," Lissa countered. She turned to meet his eyes. "Eli, I must ask. Something of you. Something that requires deeper synchronization than we have yet attempted. I'm guessing this is more of that mind-sharing you mentioned earlier?" "Yes, but much more intense. To complete the jump safely with a damage drive, we must function as a single consciousness." Eli hesitated. The idea of merging minds with an alien being he'd just met was terrifying. But the alternative, being captured by Threx and potentially helping him destroy reality, was worse. "Will I still be me afterward?" he asked. "Yes," Lissa assured him, her purple eyes solemn. "The merge is temporary, but it will create a permanent deepening of our bond. There can be no secrets between bond partners during the merge." Another hit rocked the ship. Shield integrity at 25%, the AI warned. Catastrophic failure imminent. No time for debate, Eli decided. What do I do? Release your mental barriers, Lissa instructed, reaching across to grasp his hand. When the interface prompt for deeper access, do not resist. The neural headset hummed, and Eli felt a pressure building at the base of his skull. A voice, not the AI's, but something deeper, more primal, whispered in his mind. Allow the bond to deepen? Eli closed his eyes and mentally whispered, yes. The world exploded into light and sensation. Eli was no longer just himself. He was Lissa too, experiencing her thoughts, memories, feelings as if they were his own. He felt her pain, the shoulder wound burning like fire, her determination to prevent another cataclysm at any cost, and deeper emotions she had hidden, her loneliness, the last of her kind, her guilt for surviving when others didn't, and her growing fascination with him, so different from her people, yet somehow compatible. At the same time, Lissa was experiencing his mind, his frustration with his aimless life, his desire for purpose, his fear of commitment, his attraction to her despite his resistance to the bond. There was no time for embarrassment or regret. Their merged consciousness turned to the ship, which they now perceived as an extension of themselves. The damaged systems were like injuries to their own body, but they knew exactly how to compensate. Dimensional drive engaged. They spoke in unison, voices harmonizing perfectly. Transition in 3, 2, 1. The universe folded around them, not in the controlled manner of their previous jump, but in a wild, chaotic surge that threatened to tear the ship apart. Their merged consciousness fought to stabilize the transition, redirecting energy flows, reinforcing stressed hull sections, compensating for fluctuations in the dimensional field. For a timeless moment, they existed in a state between realities, where the normal laws of physics didn't apply. Then, with a final wrenching sensation, they emerged back into normal space. Transition complete, the AI announced. Current location, unknown region. No pursuit detected. The merged consciousness began to separate, the intense connection gradually fading until Eli was once again aware of himself as a distinct individual. The neural interface retracted, and he slumped in his chair, physically and mentally exhausted. Across from him, Lissa looked equally drained, her silvery skin paler than before. The wound on her shoulder had stopped bleeding, but still looked serious. "We need to treat that," Eli said, gesturing to her injury. "The medical chamber," she agreed weakly. 2 levels down. Eli helped her up, supporting her weight as they made their way through the ship. The Aurelian was quiet now, running on minimal power as its systems recovered from the strain of the damaged jump. The medical chamber was a small room dominated by a recline chair surrounded by advanced equipment. Eli helped Lissa into the chair, which immediately adjusted to her form. "The system is automated," she explained. "It will repair the damage." A translucent dome descended over the chair, bathing Lissa in soft blue light. Eli watched, fascinated, as the burned tissue on her shoulder began to visibly heal, the blackened skin flaking away to reveal healthy silver beneath. "That's incredible," he remarked. "Does it work on humans too?" "It can adapt to most biological structures," Lissa confirmed, her voice echoing slightly from inside the dome. The Aurelian was designed for mixed-species crews. Convenient. Eli leaned against a nearby wall, suddenly aware of how exhausted he felt. The mental merge had taken more out of him than he'd realized. "You should rest," Lissa said, noticing his fatigue. "The captain's quarters are 1 level up, 3rd door on the right." "I'm fine," Eli insisted, though he could barely keep his eyes open. "I'll wait until you're done." "The treatment will take several hours," Lissa informed him. "There is no need for you to remain." Eli wanted to argue, but a massive yawn prevented him. "All right," he conceded, "but the AI will alert me if anything changes?" "Of course," Lissa agreed. "Go, Eli. We are safe for now." Reluctantly, Eli left the medical chamber and made his way up to the indicated quarters. The captain's room was surprisingly spacious, with a large bed that looked like it would accommodate Lissa's height better than his average human stature. The thought of her sleeping here made him pause. "This is her room," he realized aloud. "Affirmative," the ship's AI responded. "These are the Sentinel's quarters. As bond partner, you now share access to all shipboard facilities." "Of course we do," Eli muttered. He was too tired to worry about the implications. The bed looked invitingly comfortable, and he collapsed onto it fully clothed. Sleep claimed him instantly, deep and dreamless. When he finally awoke, he had no idea how much time had passed. The lighting in the room had adjusted to simulate natural dawn, gradually brightening to rouse him gently. "Ship time is 0700 hours, the AI informed him. "You have slept for 14 standard hours." 14 hours? Eli sat up disoriented. "Where are we? Where's Lissa?" "Current location: perimeter of the Verge Nebula, approximately 60 light-years from previous coordinates. Sentinel Lissa is in the command center." Eli found a small adjoining bathroom where he was able to clean up. Someone, presumably Lissa, had left a fresh set of clothes on a shelf. They were clearly Aerolonian in design, made from a fabric that felt like silk but had the durability of canvas. The garments adjusted to his human proportions as he put them on. Feeling somewhat refreshed, Eli made his way to the command center. Lissa was at the main console, studying star charts projected in holographic form above the control panels. Her injured shoulder showed no sign of the previous day's wound. "You're looking better," Eli commented as he entered. Lissa turned, and Eli was startled to see a genuine smile transform her usually serious face. "As are you. The bond fatigue is past, I see. Is that what it was?" "Felt like I'd run a marathon and then had my brain squeezed through a sieve." "An apt description," Lissa agreed. "The first deep synchronization is always taxing. It becomes easier with practice." Eli approached the star charts, studying the unfamiliar configurations. "Where exactly are we?" "The edge of known space," Lissa replied. "Few venture this far from the established trade routes. We should be safe from threats for the moment." "And the ship?" "The Aurelian is healing." The dimensional drive was severely strained, but the damage was not permanent. "Another day of recovery, and we should be able to make another jump if necessary." Eli nodded, then hesitated. "About yesterday, the merge. You have questions about what you experienced," Lissa stated. It wasn't a guess. After sharing minds, she knew him too well for that. "I saw your memories," Eli said slowly. "Your world before the cataclysm. It was beautiful." Sorrow flickered across Lissa's face. It was a civilization spanning millennia, reaching toward the stars, and then gone in a single day. "I saw what happened. Those things that came through the dimensional tear. The void entities," Lissa nodded. "Beyond description in any language. They exist between realities, feeding on dimensional energy. Our experiments created a passage for them. And threats want to do it again," Eli realized. "Not just use the technology, but actually recreate the tear that destroyed your world." Yes, he believes he can control what comes through, harness the energy for our restoration. He is blinded by ambition and grief. Eli paced the small command center, thinking, "We can't let him get the Aurelian. But we can't run forever, either." "No," Lissa agreed. "Sooner or later, he will find us. The Aurelian's energy signature is unique, traceable by those with the right technology. Then we need a plan, something beyond just escaping." Eli stopped and faced her directly. "I saw something else in your memories, Lissa. Something you've been keeping from me." Lissa's expression became guarded. "What do you mean?" "The bond between us. It's not just about piloting the ship, is it? There's something you haven't told me." For a long moment, Lissa was silent, her alien eyes unreadable. Then she sighed, a surprisingly human gesture. "You are correct," she admitted. "There is more to the bond than I initially explained." "I'm listening." Lissa moved away from the console, putting distance between them. "The Aurelian is unstable. The dimensional technology at its core exists partially outside normal reality. Without a complete bond between its guardians, the ship's core will eventually destabilize." "And what happens then?" Eli asked, though he suspected he already knew. At best, the ship would simply cease functioning, Lissa replied. At worst, it could create a localized dimensional tear. Not enough to allow the void entities through, but enough to destroy everything within several light years. Eli felt a chill run down his spine. And you knew this when you declared me your life mate. Yes. Lissa met his gaze unflinchingly. It was not a choice, Eli. Without the bond, the Aurelian would have begun destabilizing the moment I was awakened. It would have killed us both, and potentially many others. So you tied me to a ticking time bomb without my consent, Eli summarized, anger rising in his voice. Were you ever going to tell me? When the time was right, Lissa said. When you were ready to understand the full implications. And when would that have been? Eli demanded. After we'd completed some mystical Arelonian marriage ceremony? After it was too late for me to back out. There is no backing out, Lissa reminded him, her own temper flaring. The bond is permanent, as I told you from the beginning. The only way to truly break it is death. Yours, mine, or both. The blunt statement hung in the air between them. Eli turned away, struggling to process this new information. He had been trapped from the moment he bought the ship. No, from the moment he felt that strange pull toward it at the auction. Had the Aurelian somehow influenced his decision, knowing it needed a new navigator? I understand your anger, Lissa said quietly. Among your people, such a bond without consent would be considered a grave violation. Among mine, it was an honor, a sacred duty. She paused. I am sorry that our customs are so incompatible. The genuine regret in her voice diffused some of Eli's anger. He sighed heavily. It's not your customs I have a problem with, Lissa. It's the lack of information. The choice might have been inevitable, but I still deserve to know what I was getting into. You are right, Lissa acknowledged. I should have told you everything immediately. I feared you would reject the bond entirely, try to fight it. That resistance could have accelerated the destabilization. So instead, you let me believe it was just some cultural tradition, Eli concluded. A marriage of convenience. It was wrong of me, Lissa admitted. The merge has shown me how deeply your people value transparency. I will not withhold information from you again, bond partner. You have my word. Eli studied her, seeing the sincerity in her alien features. Despite his frustration, he found he believed her. The mental merge had given him insights into her character that would normally take years to develop. He knew, bone deep, that she was honorable, brave, and fundamentally good, despite this significant lapse in judgment. All right, he finally said, no more secrets. If we're stuck together, we need to trust each other completely. Relief visibly washed over Lissa's face. Agreed. So, Eli continued, returning to the more immediate problem. How long until this destabilization becomes critical? Without further bonding rituals? Perhaps 3 of your months. That's not much time, Eli observed. But it might be enough to deal with Threx first. You believe we should confront him directly? Lissa sounded surprised. Not exactly, Eli clarified. But we can't run forever, and we can't risk the ship falling into his hands. We need to find a way to neutralize his threat permanently. How? Threx commands a small fleet and has resources throughout this sector. We are 2 people with 1 damaged ship. Eli smiled grimly. But what a ship it is. Tell me, exactly how powerful is the Aurelian when it's operating at full capacity? Understanding dawned in Lissa's eyes. With a fully bonded pair, it is among the most formidable vessels ever created by my people. Its dimensional capabilities allow it to appear and disappear at will, penetrate any known shield technology, and deliver devastating energy attacks drawn from between realities themselves. And that's what Threx wants, Eli nodded. But he can't use it without you. Without us, Lissa corrected. The bond is between 3 entities now. You, me, and the Aurelian itself. Then we use that, Eli decided. If Threx can track the Aurelian's energy signature, we can lead him exactly where we want him to go. A trap. Lissa considered this. It could work, but it would be extremely dangerous. Threx is cunning and experienced. So are we, Eli countered. And we have something he doesn't. A genuine bond with the Aurelian. For the first time, He didn't flinch at the word bond. Whatever his feelings about how it had happened, Eli was beginning to accept that the connection between them was real and potentially valuable. He had felt it during the battle, during the escape, and most profoundly during the mental merge. Lissa studied him with new appreciation. "You are adapting to our situation better than I expected, Eli Carter. Don't get too excited," he warned. "I'm still not thrilled about any of this. But if we're going to survive and stop threats from potentially destroying reality, we need to work together. A pragmatic approach." Lissa approved. "Very well. Let's plan our trap." For the next several hours, they worked together, mapping out a strategy. The Aurelian's AI provided tactical simulations and data on Threx's likely resources. They identified a suitable location, an uninhabited star system with a dense asteroid field that would provide both cover and natural hazards for pursuing ships. "The key will be timing," Eli emphasized as they reviewed the plan. "We need the Aurelian at full strength, which means completing more of the bonding process," Lissa finished. The merge was only the first step. Eli had been avoiding this topic, but now he faced it directly. What exactly do these additional bonding rituals involve? "Nothing physically intimate, if that is your concern," Lissa assured him. "The next stage is the sharing of purpose, a formal declaration of joint intent that helps align our energies with the Aurelian's dimensional core." "That doesn't sound too bad," Eli admitted. "What comes after that?" "The binding of spirits, a deeper and more permanent version of the merge we experienced. It would create a permanent mental connection between us, allowing instantaneous communication regardless of distance." Eli whistled. "That's significant." "It is the final stage before full bonding," Lissa confirmed. "But we need not proceed to that level immediately. The sharing of purpose should provide enough stability for our current needs." Eli considered this. A ritual declaration of shared intent seemed reasonable enough. "When will we do this?" "The sooner, the better," Lissa replied. "The Aurelian systems are already showing signs of the preliminary bonding. Advancing to the next stage would accelerate the healing process." "Then let's do it," Eli decided. "What's the procedure?" "We must go to the core chamber," Lissa explained. "The heart of the Aurelian, where the dimensional drive is housed. There, we declare our unified purpose in the presence of the ship's consciousness." "The ship has a consciousness? Beyond the AI?" "Yes. The AI is merely an interface. The true consciousness of the Aurelian is difficult to describe. You will understand when you experience it directly." This was venturing into territory far beyond Eli's engineering background, but he had already seen enough impossible things to keep an open mind. "Lead the way." Lissa guided him deeper into the ship than he had yet ventured. They descended through narrow corridors that seemed to shift subtly as they passed, as though the interior of the vessel was reconfiguring itself around them. Finally, they reached a sealed doorway inscribed with intricate patterns similar to those on Threx's armor. "The core chamber," Lissa announced. "Few non-Aralonians have ever seen what lies beyond." She placed her hand on a central panel, and the patterns lit up with a soft blue glow. The door silently slid open, revealing a chamber that defied Eli's understanding of physics and architecture. The room, if it could be called that, seemed larger inside than should have been possible given the exterior dimensions of the ship. Its walls curved in geometrically impossible ways, creating a space that somehow felt infinite despite its obvious boundaries. At the center floated a pulsing mass of energy that shifted between states, sometimes appearing solid like a crystal, other times gaseous like a nebula, occasionally seeming to disappear entirely before reappearing in a new configuration. "The dimensional core," Lissa said reverently. "The heart of the Aurelian." Eli stared, mesmerized by the shifting patterns. "It's beautiful and deadly," Lissa added. "What you're seeing exists partially in our reality and partially in others. The containment field prevents it from tearing a hole in space-time." As they approached the core, Eli felt a strange sensation, as though something vast and ancient was turning its attention toward him. It wasn't a physical feeling, but rather an awareness that emerged directly in his consciousness. "It knows we're here," he whispered. "Yes," Lissa confirmed. "The Aurelian is awakening fully. It recognizes its new navigator." The energy at the center of the room pulsed brighter, and Eli felt a pressure building in his mind. Not painful, but insistent, like someone knocking at a door. "What do we do now?" he asked, finding it difficult to look away from the hypnotic patterns of the core. "We join hands and declare our shared purpose," Lissa instructed, extending her silvery hand toward him. "The words need not be formal, but they must be sincere. The Aurelian will know if we speak falsely." Eli hesitated only briefly before taking her hand. The moment their fingers interlaced, the bond between them flared to life again, though less overwhelmingly than during the merge. He could sense Lissa's emotions, her hope, her determination, and underlying it all, a growing affection for him that she couldn't entirely conceal. "I'll go first," Lissa offered, turning to face the core directly. "I, Lissa, Sentinel of Arlon Prime, pledge my purpose to the protection of reality's barriers. I will guard the Aurelian's power from those who would misuse it, and I will honor the bond with my navigator, Eli Carter." The core pulsed in acknowledgement, the energies swirling more rapidly. Eli felt the pressure in his mind increase, urging him to speak his own pledge. Taking a deep breath, he said, "I, Eli Carter, navigator of the Aurelian, pledge to help protect this ship and its powers from those who would misuse them. I will work with Lissa to prevent another catastrophe like the one that destroyed her world." And he hesitated, then continued with complete honesty, "I will try to honor our bond, despite its unexpected nature." The core flared brightly, tendrils of energy reaching out toward them without quite making contact. The pressure in Eli's mind changed, becoming something more like a presence. Vast, ancient, and unmistakably alive. He had the distinct impression of being examined, evaluated, and finally accepted. "The sharing of purpose is complete," Lissa announced as the core's light gradually returned to its previous intensity. "The Aurelian has acknowledged our bond and our intent." As they turned to leave the chamber, Eli realized he felt different, lighter somehow, as though a weight he hadn't known he was carrying had been lifted. The ship around them seemed more responsive, the lights brighter, the air fresher. "The Aurelian is pleased," Lissa explained, noting his reaction. "It has been too long without properly bonded guardians." "I still have questions," Eli said as they made their way back to the command center. "A lot of questions, and I will answer them all," Lissa promised. "But first, we should check our progress. The healing should be accelerating now." In the command center, the displays confirmed Lissa's prediction. The ship's systems were recovering at a remarkable rate, energy levels rising steadily across all critical functions. "The dimensional drive is already at 80% capacity," Eli noted, reading the data. "That's much faster than you predicted." "The sharing of purpose has strengthened the Aurelian's connection to us," Lissa explained. "It can now draw more efficiently on the ambient energy of space." "How long until we're ready to implement our plan?" Lissa studied the readings. 6 hours, perhaps less. "We should rest while we can." "I just slept for 14 hours, Eli reminded her. "Physical rest, yes, but your mind has been under considerable strain." She looked at him with genuine concern. "The bonding process taxes humans differently than Aralonians. Your species is not naturally telepathic." "I'm fine," Eli insisted, though now that she mentioned it, he did feel a dull pressure behind his eyes. "But I'll take it easy until we're ready to move." Lissa nodded, seemingly satisfied. "I will meditate to prepare myself. The AI will alert us when the ship reaches optimal capacity." As Lissa left the command center, Eli found himself alone with his thoughts. The events of the past days seemed surreal. From unemployed drifter to bonded navigator of an ancient, living spaceship, bound to an alien warrior and pursued by a madman bent on tearing open reality itself. "Not exactly how I planned my week," he muttered to himself. Few destinies reveal themselves on convenient schedules. The ship's AI responded unexpectedly. Eli blinked. You're chattier than before. The strengthened bond allows for enhanced communication, the AI explained. I am an extension of the Aurelian's consciousness, filtered through interfaces you can comprehend. And what does the Aurelian think of all this? Eli asked, curious. The AI was silent for a moment, as though consulting with some higher authority. The Aurelian is gratified. Your spirit is compatible in ways unexpected for your species. The bond is strong, despite your reservations. Yeah, well, those reservations haven't gone away, Eli pointed out. I'm still not thrilled about being cosmically married without my consent. The bond is not marriage as humans understand it, the AI corrected. It is a symbiosis of consciousness. The Sentinel's use of life mate was an approximation in your language. Doesn't make much difference from where I'm standing, Eli argued. I'm still permanently tied to someone I just met. All relationships begin with strangers, the AI observed philosophically. The bond merely accelerates the process of knowing. That's actually a fair point, Eli admitted reluctantly. But most relationships also include the option to walk away if things don't work out. The Aurelian regrets that limitation, the AI said, surprising Eli with what sounded almost like an apology. But the nature of dimensional energy requires stability. Flux in the bond creates dangerous instability in the core. Eli sighed and leaned back in his chair. I get it. Cosmic powers, great responsibility, no refunds or exchanges. I made my peace with it, mostly. Your adaptation is noted and appreciated, the AI replied. Rest now, navigator. The coming confrontation will require all your strength. Taking the AI's advice, Eli retreated to a small observation lounge he'd discovered during his earlier exploration of the ship. It offered a spectacular view of the nebula outside, swirling clouds of cosmic gas lit by the fires of stellar nurseries within. As he gazed out at the vista, Eli reflected on the bizarre turn his life had taken. A week ago, he had been just another failed engineer drifting between dead-end jobs on the fringes of civilization. Now he was navigator of perhaps the most advanced ship in the galaxy, mentally linked to an alien warrior, and preparing to confront a power-mad commander with delusions of godhood. Not exactly a lateral career move, he mused. Despite the danger and the unwelcome nature of the bond, Eli had to admit there was something exhilarating about his new circumstances. For the first time in years, he had a purpose, something that mattered beyond mere survival. And if he was honest with himself, the connection with Lissa was not entirely unpleasant. She was brave, honorable, and possessed a quiet strength that he admired. Navigator, Lissa's voice came from the doorway, interrupting his thoughts. The Aurelian has reached optimal capacity sooner than expected. We are ready. Eli turned to find her standing at the entrance to the observation lounge, her tall figure silhouetted against the corridor lights. Something about her had changed since the sharing of purpose ritual, a new confidence in her bearing, a subtle glow to her silvery skin. That was fast, he commented, rising to his feet. The ritual really helped. More than anticipated, she agreed. The Aurelian responds well to our particular bond. Lucky us, Eli said, only partially sarcastic. So what's the plan again? We jump to the Verona asteroid field, broadcast our location, and wait for Threx to take the bait. Essentially, yes, Lissa confirmed. The field will negate much of his fleet's advantage. The Aurelian's maneuverability will be superior in such terrain. And once he shows up, we engage his flagship directly. With the Aurelian at full capacity and our bond strengthened, we should be able to disable his vessel without destroying it. Should? Eli raised an eyebrow. There are always variables in combat, Lissa admitted. But our simulations show an 82% probability of success. Those are better odds than I usually get, Eli acknowledged. Let's do it. They returned to the command center, where the neural interfaces waited. As Eli settled into the navigator's chair, he felt a now familiar tingling as the interface connected with his mind. The ship's systems flowed into his awareness, but with greater clarity than before. He could sense the dimensional drive humming with power, ready to tear a hole in reality at his command. Coordinates set for the Verona field, Lissa confirmed. Dimensional jump on your mark, navigator. Eli took a deep breath, mentally reaching for the conceptual controls that would initiate the jump. Mark! The universe folded around them, but unlike their previous damaged jump, this transition was smooth and controlled. For a brief moment, Eli caught glimpses of other realities sliding past, strange geometries, impossible colors, echoes of worlds that might have been. Then they emerged into normal space, surrounded by the massive rocks of the Verona asteroid field. Transition complete, the AI announced. All systems nominal. The Aurelian extends gratitude for the skilled navigation. Did the ship just thank us? Eli asked, surprised. It is becoming more expressive as our bond deepens, Lissa explained. The Aurelian is not merely a vessel, but a sentient entity. With proper bonding, its personality emerges more fully. Great, another person in this relationship, Eli muttered, though without real annoyance. He was starting to appreciate the unique nature of their three-way connection. Lissa smiled slightly. It is traditional for the ship to become a mediating presence between bond partners. Something of what would your people call it? A matchmaker. Perfect, Eli sighed. My alien wife and our sentient spaceship are ganging up on me. Bond partner, Lissa corrected, but with a hint of amusement in her voice. Now, shall we send our invitation to Threx? Let's not keep the megalomaniac waiting, Eli agreed. What's the most obnoxious way we can announce our presence? The Aurelian can generate a dimensional pulse that will be unmistakable to Threx's sensors, Lissa suggested. It is somewhat like lighting a beacon in the dark. Do it, Eli nodded. Let's make sure he can't resist the bait. Lissa entered a sequence of commands, and the ship hummed with power. A wave of energy pulsed outward from the Aurelian, rippling through space-time itself. Pulse sent, the AI confirmed. Estimated response time, 43 minutes. That gives us time to prepare, Lissa said. The Aurelian has combat protocols that will enhance our effectiveness, but they require pre-synchronization. Another bonding thing? Eli asked warily. A minor one, Lissa assured him. More technical than spiritual. It will optimize our reaction times during battle. Fine, Eli agreed. What do we need to do? Remain in your interfaces while I activate the combat systems, Lissa instructed. You will feel a series of simulated scenarios. Respond as naturally as possible. As she worked, Eli felt the neural interface shift into a new mode. Suddenly, he was experiencing a series of rapid-fire combat situations. Asteroid collisions, enemy fire, system failures. His reactions were tested and measured, the ship learning his instinctive responses and adapting its systems to complement them. Your reflexes are exceptional, Lissa noted with approval. The Aurelian is integrating your patterns efficiently. Years of simulator games finally paying off, Eli joked, though the intensity of the experience left him slightly breathless. When the combat synchronization was complete, Eli felt a new awareness of the ship's defensive capabilities. He could sense the weapon systems as extensions of his own body, ready to respond to his thoughts. Incoming vessels detected, the AI announced. Configuration matches Threx's fleet. Estimated arrival, 12 minutes. He's early, Lissa observed, switching to tactical displays. He must have been closer than we anticipated. Or more eager, Eli suggested. How many ships? 5 in total, the AI reported. The flagship and 4 support vessels. As expected, Lissa nodded. The support ships will be formidable but conventional. The flagship, however, contains Aurelian technology, not as advanced as the Aurelian, but dangerous nonetheless. Then we focus on the flagship, Eli decided. Take out Threx, and the rest will likely retreat. Agreed, Lissa said. Position us behind that larger asteroid. We will allow them to enter the field before revealing ourselves. The Aurelian glided silently through the asteroid field, taking cover behind a massive rock nearly twice the size of the ship. Through the sensors, they watched as Threx's fleet approached cautiously, spreading out to search the field. They're scanning for our energy signature, the AI reported. Current shielding is masking our presence effectively. Good, Eli said. Let them come to us. Minutes ticked by as the enemy vessels moved deeper into the asteroid field. Their formation was tight but flexible, adapting to the chaotic movements of the space rocks around them. Flagship is approaching optimal engagement range, Lissa announced. 20 seconds to intercept point. Weapons charge, Eli confirmed. Fully, Lissa replied. The Aurelian awaits your command. Eli felt a surge of adrenaline as he prepared for battle. Despite the danger, he found himself excited. On my mark, 3, 2, 1 mark. The Aurelian burst from behind the asteroid, dimensional engines flaring with power. Before Threx's fleet could react, they had closed half the distance to the flagship, weapons already firing. Direct hit on flagship shields, the AI reported. Shield integrity at 90%. They're returning fire, Lissa warned as energy beams lanced toward them from multiple vessels. Eli didn't need the warning. He could feel the incoming attacks through his connection to the ship's sensors. Almost instinctively, he guided the Aurelian into a complex, evasive pattern, weaving between asteroids with impossible precision. Support vessels attempting to flank us, the AI noted. Let them try, Eli responded confidently. He could sense every vessel's position, every asteroid's trajectory. The bond with Lissa enhanced his spatial awareness beyond anything he'd experienced before. The battle became a deadly dance through the asteroid field. The Aurelian's superior maneuverability allowed them to stay one step ahead of Threx's fleet, launching precision strikes against the flagship while avoiding the worst of the return fire. Flagship shields at 60%, Lissa reported after several minutes of intense combat. Our shields holding at 75%. We're winning, Eli realized, but his satisfaction was short-lived. Alert, the AI interrupted. Flagship is activating unknown weapon system. Dimensional distortion detected. Before they could react, a beam of spiraling energy shot from Threx's vessel, not toward the Aurelian, but into the space beside it. Reality itself seemed to warp and tear, creating a swirling vortex that began to pull everything nearby toward its center. He's creating a localized dimensional rift, Lissa exclaimed, horror in her voice. He's trying to tear open reality itself. Can he do that? Eli asked, fighting to keep the Aurelian from being drawn into the growing vortex. Not fully. Not without the Aurelian's core, Lissa explained rapidly. But even this small rift is extremely dangerous. If it destabilizes. Her warning was cut short as the vortex suddenly expanded, energy tendrils lashing out like living things. One struck the Aurelian directly, bypassing their shields entirely. Direct hit to dimensional systems, the AI reported, its voice fluctuating strangely. Core stability compromised. The ship lurched violently, and Eli felt a searing pain in his mind as the neural link fluctuated. Through their bond, he could sense Lissa's pain as well, a mirror of his own. We need to stabilize the core, she gasped, fighting to maintain control. If it collapses... I know, Eli interrupted. He could feel the danger through the ship itself. The dimensional core was becoming unstable, its energies threatening to cascade out of control. What do we do? The binding of spirits, Lissa said grimly. It's the only way to channel enough energy to stabilize the core and close that rift before it expands. I thought that was the next stage we were going to take our time with, Eli reminded her. Circumstances have changed, Lissa replied, her voice tight with pain and urgency. We have no choice, Eli. If that rift expands, it could swallow this entire system and potentially allow the void entities access to this reality. Another energy tendril lashed out from the vortex, striking a nearby support vessel. The ship was torn apart instantly, its fragments pulled into the growing rift. Even Threx cannot control what he's unleashed, Lissa observed. He's playing with forces beyond his understanding. Eli made his decision. Tell me what to do. Open your mind completely, Lissa instructed. The neural interface will guide the process, but you must not resist. Our consciousnesses must merge fully this time, not temporarily, but permanently. Permanently, Eli hesitated. As in, we'll never be separate individuals again. We will maintain our separate identities, Lissa assured him, but a part of us will always be connected, regardless of physical distance. It is the closest approximation to what your people would call a marriage of minds. Another violent shudder ran through the ship as the core fluctuated dangerously. There was no more time for debate. Do it, Eli commanded. The neural interfaces hummed with increased power, and Eli felt his consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of his own mind. Unlike their previous merge, which had been like looking through a window in Alyssa's thoughts, this was more like walls dissolving entirely. He was Eli, but he was also Lissa, experiencing her memories not as an observer, but as the one who had lived them. Her childhood on Arlon Prime, her training as a sentinel, the horror of watching her world die, the centuries of lonely sleep, all became part of his own history, as real to him as his own past. At the same time, Lissa was experiencing his life, his childhood on Earth, his struggles in school, his passion for engineering, his disappointments and small triumphs, the aimless drifting that had led him to that fateful auction. And between them, a third consciousness emerged, the Aurelian itself, ancient and wise, binding them together in a triumvirate of minds. Through this three-way connection, energy flowed like a river, channeled and directed with perfect harmony. Now, they spoke in unison, their voices blending into a single command. The Aurelian's dimensional drive activated at full power, but instead of creating a jump, it directed its energy toward Threx's artificial rift. Light poured from the ship in a concentrated beam, striking the swirling vortex at its center. For a moment, the rift seemed to expand further, growing to nearly twice its previous size. Then, gradually, it began to contract, the tiers in reality knitting themselves back together under the Aurelian's guided power. No! Threx's voice boomed over the communication system. What are you doing? The gateway is opening. I can feel them coming through. Through their merged consciousness, they could sense the truth in Threx's words. Something was indeed stirring on the other side of the rift. Vast, alien intelligences becoming aware of the passage being created for them. The same entities that had destroyed Arlon Prime were reaching toward this reality. We must close it completely, Lissa's portion of their shared mind insisted. Focus all power on sealing the breach. Together, they directed the Aurelian's energy more precisely, targeting the weakest points in the dimensional tear. The ship's systems strained under the pressure, power levels dropping rapidly as they fought to reverse the damage Threx had caused. It's working, Eli's consciousness noted. The rift is collapsing. Indeed, the swirling vortex was shrinking visibly, its pull on surrounding matter diminishing. But Threx was not finished. His flagship suddenly accelerated, driving directly toward the Aurelian. He means to ram us, they realized together, to disrupt our efforts before the rift closes completely. Without hesitation, they redirected a portion of their power to defensive maneuvers, spinning the Aurelian away from Threx's desperate charge. The flagship shot past them, missing by mere meters, and continued on its trajectory, directly into the collapsing rift. No! Threx's voice screamed over the comm. The calibration is wrong. Pull back. Pull back. But it was too late. The flagship was caught in the rift's final collapse, its hull twisting impossibly as dimensional forces tore at it from all directions. For a brief, terrible moment, they glimpsed through the failing ship's sensors what lay beyond, shapes that couldn't exist in three-dimensional space, intelligence that burned like cold fire, hunger that transcended physical reality. Then the rift closed with a silent flash of light, taking Threx's flagship with it. The remaining support vessels, witnessing their commander's fate, immediately began retreating from the asteroid field. In the sudden calm, Eli and Lissa's merged consciousness began to separate, returning to their individual minds. The process was gentle this time, like waking slowly from shared dream. But as promised, a connection remained, a subtle awareness of each other's presence and emotions that felt as natural as breathing. That was, Eli began, unable to find words adequate to describe the experience. Yes, Lissa agreed simply, understanding exactly what he meant without further explanation. The binding of spirits had changed them both in ways they were only beginning to comprehend. Core stability restored, the AI announced. All systems returning to normal parameters. And threats? Eli asked, though he already knew the answer. Gone, Lissa confirmed. Whether destroyed or trapped between realities, I cannot say. But he will not return to this realm. Eli leaned back in his chair, physically and mentally exhausted. So what now? We've defeated the bad guy, saved reality. What's next for a bonded pair with a living spaceship? Lissa considered this. The galaxy is vast, Eli Carter. There are wonders and dangers beyond imagining. The Aurelian was created to explore and protect, purposes it has been unable to fulfill for centuries. Exploration sounds good, Eli admitted. Better than running for our lives, anyway. And there is much for us to learn about each other, Lissa added softly. The bond is formed, but its potential is still unfolding. Through their new connection, Eli could sense her genuine hope, not just for their mission, but for their personal relationship. The formal, dutiful Sentinel was revealing a depth of emotion he hadn't fully appreciated before. You know, he said thoughtfully, when I bought that ship at auction, I was just looking for a way off that station. I never expected it would come with, well, everything else. Destiny works in unexpected ways, Lissa observed with a small smile. I still don't believe in destiny, Eli countered, but his tone was lighter now. But I'm starting to think maybe some things do happen for a reason. The Aurelian hummed around them, its systems fully restored and operating at peak efficiency. Through their bond, Eli could sense the ship's contentment, a state of being the ancient vessel hadn't experienced in centuries. Where shall we go? Lissa asked, bringing up the galactic chart. The choice is yours, navigator. Eli studied the swirling map of stars and nebulae, each point of light representing possibilities he had never imagined when he'd wandered into that auction yard with his meager savings. He might not have chosen this path, but now that he was on it, he found himself unexpectedly eager to see where it led. That way, he decided, pointing to an unexplored sector at the edge of known space. Let's find out what's out there. Lissa nodded, a rare smile transforming her usually serious face. A worthy first journey for bond partners. As the Aurelian's engines powered up for another dimensional jump, Eli reflected on the strange sequence of events that had brought him here. A cheap ship purchased at auction, an alien warrior awakened from centuries of sleep, a mental bond that defied his understanding of science and relationships. And now, a future filled with possibilities he was only beginning to comprehend. Not a bad deal for 100 credits, he decided, as the stars streaked in a lines around them and the Aurelian carried its bonded pair into the unknown. In the command center of the Aurelian, Eli sat beside Lissa, their minds linked through the ship's neural interface. The stars streamed past as they traversed the dimensional rift, reality folding and unfolding around them like origami in the hands of a master. For Eli Carter, former unemployed engineer and unlikely navigator of an ancient vessel, the universe had never seemed larger or more full of possibility. The bond that had once felt like a prison now seemed more like a doorway to new worlds, new experiences, and a connection deeper than he had ever thought possible. Beside him, Lissa monitored the ship's systems with the efficiency of a trained sentinel. But through their bond, Eli could sense her wonder and hope. Emotions long dormant during her centuries of stasis, now blossoming in the light of their shared future. We are approaching exit coordinates, she announced, her voice carrying the musical cadence of her native language. Prepare for transition to normal space. Ready when you are, bond partner, Eli replied, the term no longer awkward on his lips. As the Aurelian prepared to emerge into a new sector of space, three consciousnesses, human, Arelonian, and the ancient ship itself, worked in perfect harmony, their futures now irrevocably intertwined. He had bought a cheap ship at auction, but what he'd really purchased was a destiny beyond imagination, and a bond that transcended the boundaries between species, between minds, and between worlds. And somewhere in the infinite tapestry of the cosmos, that seemed like the deal of a lifetime,